Didn't get the advertised price. Bought a car with a lot of problems. What do I do? We're talking about used car shopping. I'm Joe Ducey, and this is the Joe Knows Better podcast. All right, guys, we're talking used cars today. Everybody loves car shopping, don't they?
It's our favorite subject.
You guys, yeah. Me? I hate car shopping.
I don't like car shopping.
You don't like it either?
No.
Well, you know some of the dealers, though.
I know a lot. Well, it does make it a lot easier.
A little easier. Sure. And you are, you're one of those, well, you're not necessarily a dealer. What would you call it, Tony?
Well, you would have called us an auto broker.
Broker, yeah. So you help find the deals.
Right.
Okay.
But I tend to use consulting because in my profession, I found that that's more of what we do. We don't sell cars. We help people buy cars.
All right. Let me introduce you. That's Tony Sibley. He's owner of Automan. That's AHHTOMAN, right?
MyAutoman.com.
MyAutoman.com.
For short.
You've been in business for over 30 years.
That's correct.
You're in Avondale, but you cover the whole Phoenix area, I guess.
Correct, sir.
All right.
Yes.
And you're a BBB Accredited Business.
That's correct.
Congratulations on that. And Dave Warkentin is here also. He's Executive Director of the Arizona Independent Automobile Dealers Association. And we've talked a lot with my past profession with ABC 15.
Yeah.
And, I looked at your website, I like fighting for regulations that benefit the industry, but they are balanced with consumer protections. And that's the great part. And I think that's why I think it's wonderful that you guys, work for the consumer as well as the businesses you represent.
Absolutely. Most of the laws that are in Arizona are consumer facing.
Yeah.
And they're there because some consumer at some point in the past has been harmed.
Yeah.
And I make no excuses for dealers that are harming consumers. The best way to run our industry is to take care of our consumers and realize that without consumers, we're nothing.
Yeah.
And so we help our dealers know what they should be doing to take care of their customers, know what's required by the law, and make sure that there's a good balance out there so we can, dealers can still make money and do good business, but we're keeping people in vehicles so they can get to work and drive their families to school. Or
I think what I want to say here, too, is this is, it sounds like this is very pro-consumer, and it is, but it's also not anti-business, and that's not my plan here. It's trying to get, what I'm trying to do, I think, with these is trying to get good businesses, to help consumers lead back to them and not to the bad businesses.
That's right.
So in other words, I'm trying to use good businesses to try to educate consumers about how to find the bad ones and the warning signs, because there are a lot of great car dealers out there. We know a lot of people are getting cars, and
most of them are good dealers.
Yeah. And Tony, let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing out there. I guess now you have to deal with the car dealers themselves, correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
We deal with both the consumer and the car dealer to fiduciate the transaction, primarily with new cars.
Okay.
Obviously, coming out of the pandemic, we learned a lot. But more importantly, we're also seeing some different things with lenders. And, there are many, many moving parts to a car transaction, which is why I believe that consulting is critical. You need to be with a professional so that you can get, number one, the freedom to exercise a healthy decision before you invest your money in a car.
Right.
As you know, a car, 7 to 10 year ownership, you should have some sort of basis of how much that car is going to cost to own over a period of time, including service, maintenance, insurance.
Let me ask you something. You mentioned finance, and Dave, I don't know if we get in the weeds here. You might deal with this all the time. I know you hear from your people, but I always thought, you tell me what the best way is for a consumer looking for a car. And I guess, used car, or I guess new car sometimes they offer incentives for, like 0% financing or some of those things, which I think are great if you can take advantage of them. But when a person comes to buy a car, I always say they should have some kind of financing in place, so at least an option. They should have gone to a credit union. They should have gone somewhere so at least they have the possibility of getting, that price, right, that financing. But entertain the idea of whatever the dealer's offering. What would you say to that, Dave?
I think for a consumer to go and see what financing they can get and at what rate and what term, it would give the consumer more information, which is always my advice, which is get yourself as well educated as you can before you go into the dealership. So have a better idea of what vehicles you might be gravitating towards, what your price point is, figure out what kind of financing you would be able to get at a credit union or a financial institution.
Do all that before you go onto the lot, basically.
If you can. The reality is that consumers with really bad credit have very little option. And frankly, they're not going to find a major institution that's going to give them a loan because, frankly, if you've got bad credit, you've got a history of not paying your loans, not making your payments. And so in that case, often the only place you're going to be able to get a vehicle with a loan is a buy here, pay here dealer that's going to take that additional risk of lending to you. Of course, you're going to pay a higher interest rate as a result of it, but you're going to get a vehicle that you need to survive, whether it's get to work or for your family or whatever that might be.
And I want to talk more about that too. That's a good point. And Tony, what do you see?
What I would say is, and to Dave's point, consumers should basically look at their credit union's website, provided that they are a member, because most of the websites you can do a quick pull down. It'll say auto loans. FICO score ranges between 680 and 719. Your rate's going to be 6.9 up to 60 months, and then they can kind of have some basis of understanding. The problem with them absolutely trying to submit an application and get a loan approval, that part can be very frustrating.
Okay.
Also, going through the institution without a car, it's really not set up that way anymore. You could do it years ago, but now a lot of the institutions are more indirect, and they want a partnership between some sort of automobile entity to provide them what we call structure, because there's things like LTV, loan to value. There's a lot of factors that come into play, because a consumer can say, oh, I'm approved for $30,000, and they come to buy a car and find out, okay, but the car is only worth $22,000, and I bought an extended warranty, and I bought a tire policy, I bought a 10-year wax policy. Now I'm at 130%, and the bank won't loan them the money. Dealerships are very frightened. I'm always an advocate of a person coming in armed with a pre-approval. In fact, I love it. Yeah. And I used to see it consistently many years ago. Right. However, more frequently, we're not seeing that anymore. It seems that people have become more allured to the instant gratification effect. Okay. And they just run to the dealer because the car was orange and it's in stock, and they buy more out of anxiety rather than out of intelligence.
Really? Okay. All right. And is it still that low price thing too, that people that we've always said, man, if it's too good to be true, whatever.
It depends.
It's like it's that advertised low price, can't find anywhere else, and they go for that.
There are a lot of things to consider on price.
Yeah.
Is it really the lowest price, for example?
Right.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of dealers out there that will list something for a certain price, but they've got a bunch of things added onto the vehicle that they didn't disclose.
Exactly.
So it might be paint protection or gap insurance or underbody coating or window etching or tinting or things like that. And frankly, the dealers are required to disclose those things at the federal level, but the enforcement is not very high. And so it leaves the consumer in a rough spot. But the consumer needs to understand that they have a right to pay for that vehicle what it was listed for.
Okay.
If the dealer
That's the law, basically. Because, well, here I'm going to bring this up because a good segue here. Attorney General Mays settles with Tucson-based auto dealer over deception. And you guys probably saw this recently. We went after a play, but I'm going to mention it. Dealerships cannot lure consumers in with a low online price then fail to honor that price once consumers arrive at the dealership. The complaint is that this place engaged in false advertising by advertising vehicles with a low price online, refused to sell it for that price. For new vehicles, they did not include the dealer-installed add-on accessories such as exterior protective coating, door edge guards, door cups, window tint, in the online vehicle price. Then when consumers attempted to purchase a new vehicle, they refused to sell the vehicles unless consumers purchased the add-ons, raising the vehicle price above the advertised price. Right. How often do you see that?
Quite a bit.
A lot.
If I might just take a second for the sake of time. 2 weeks ago, I got a call from a Honda dealer, and he said, hey, you have a Honda Touring that you took in on trade. It was a lease vehicle that my client traded back with me, and I kept it. It was a beautiful car. He says, and we have a client that wants one. Would you be willing to sell it to him? I said, certainly I would. He said, but the kicker is he bought a car on Sunday. Now, this is on a Tuesday. Mm-hmm. He says, and he's not happy with the vehicle. So he comes in there. He's got 2 extended warranty contracts on the contract. He's got a tire and wheel protection package on the contract, and every single wheel is already scuffed. Okay, so he just said that, you know what, him and his wife didn't like the feel of the car, and they just they felt like they wanted a little bit heavier touring model, and so I accommodated him. I gave him pretty much what he paid for it, and I helped him go back and get every single penny that because a lot of those ancillary products that they put on there are not refundable for any cash value after 30 days. And in some instances, you can't get it refunded at all, you know, like the wax and paint protection. In this particular instance, what I had the client do is call him and say, hey, listen, you sold me a car, you sold me an extended warranty, and then you sold me another safety key lockout warranty for $1,000. Then you sold me a tire and wheel warranty for $1,200, and all of the wheels were destroyed on the car. They all had scuffs. He said, so should I? And I told him, I said, just call the warranty company and tell them, listen, are you going to fix these wheels? They were broke when I bought it. They immediately wrote him a check. We see it all of the time. Now, and it's one of the reasons why I don't sell that stuff.
Is it big profit for the dealer? Is that where it comes in? Is that why they're adding this stuff on? Because it costs, you know, not as much as the consumer is paying for those things?
Well, you know, Joe, if I put it to you straight, I think that the dealerships heavily rely on back end to save profit. Like, they'll sell a car through sales.
Like a movie theater selling popcorn.
That's right. And then they'll make their profit in finance. I mean, I've got contracts in my desk that customers have given me permission to keep. Where dealers have made an upwards of $19,000 to $20,000 on one car, and I've cried with customers. I mean, it's horrible.
What is? All right, I'm going to throw you guys under the bus right here. What's a doc fee?
A doc fee is a documentation fee. So it's the fee that dealers can charge to complete the state and federal documents required. And in Arizona,
$400.
Well, in Arizona, there is no cap on the doc fee. Dealers, because there's no cap, dealers can charge whatever they want, but there's a caveat to that, which is there's only so much that is actually defensible. And the problem is because there's no cap, there's no statute that says for a dealer to defend a doc fee, they need to be able to show X. There is nothing. The statute is silent in regards to that. And so, like a lot of things that are in statute are implied, or you get to in a roundabout way, a lot of this stuff is only enforceable through a lawsuit.
And people aren't going to take the time probably to do that.
But lawyers don't want the cases.
Because it's too little amount of money.
Right.
So I remember doing stories about this. We couldn't get anybody to tell us exactly what it's about, you know, and it was like $400, $500 in some cases. I remember listing them all. This was with ABC 15, listing everyone by dealer for the whole state. Just so people could know exactly what they're doing. It's one unnegotiable thing. You can't. I've never seen anybody say, I tried to get that doc fee, and they said yes. You know, so I always thought it was just basically profit.
Well, just to give you an example, if the dealership does remove a doc fee, then he needs to refund every customer that he
There
charged.
You go. Okay, so it's setting a precedent.
That's right.
Okay.
And there are indeed some fees that occur in the process of perfecting titles and you know, that costs money, and you know, so there's.
Just had to get that out there.
There's a margin.
I know there's. I agree that there should be some fee, but it just seems some of them are really high. But that's what you guys are saying. There's no law really preventing that right now. There are a bunch of things we've talked about here, but we go back to the financing. I understand, I used to get these complaints all the time and people were like, I'm paying, 50%, interest, which I was like, oh my God, that's just crazy. And I still think that's way too high. But, free enterprise site, you think, okay, I could say no to that one and I'm going to move on to the next one and it's going to be cheaper, right? But a lot of these people are in situations where they can't do that, as Dave was saying. And if they want a car to drive, to get to work, to get the kids to school, to do these things, the only way they can get those wheels is to go with somebody who's going to take a risk on them that's going to charge them a higher price. I agree. I understand that. I don't love it, but I get it. And people have gotten themselves in those situations in some cases. The bad part, I think, though, is if they are selling them that, but they're selling them things that are like money pits. You know what I'm saying? So not only are they paying a higher fee for this, which you get a lot of people saying, not a lot, the complaints that come in, a lot of those have to do with people spending a certain amount of money and then getting something that they didn't think was going to be the case. Now, maybe they didn't do the proper work beforehand. Maybe they didn't check it out properly. And I want to go into some of that stuff. But do you see, let's move on, I guess, unless you want to talk about the financing part. If not, we'll move on to what happens. What should people do when they go looking for a car in terms of finding one that's going to be decent and not a money pit?
Let me just say one thing about financing.
Go ahead.
The worse your credit, the fewer options you have. You're not going to find a dealer that's charging 50% interest. That's the range is, if for really bad credit, 23 to 27%. That's going to be the top. If we're talking 50% or higher interest rates, we're now talking title loans.
Yeah.
And again, there is no cap.
Yeah.
And also, we have to remember that low credit consumers are very, very bad risk. And you might have one customer that completes the loan to term. There'll be 10 more customers that will just walk away from the loan and abandon the vehicle on the side of the road, which is why they got such bad credit to begin with. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not saying that they should be taken advantage of, but for a dealer or a lender to cover their entire risk, there's a certain percentage that they have to charge or they will lose money.
Okay. Right. So you want to be, as a consumer, you want to be in a position where you can go in and say, no, that's too high, I'm going to move on to the next place. Well, and you know what I'm saying? You can then they have options.
Well, but I'll tell you, low credit customers generally don't care about the price of the vehicle. They don't care about the interest rate. They just care about what's their payment. That's what they're hyper-focused on.
Let's talk about that, because there's been a lot of talk about that when people buy new or used cars, concentrating on the payment. Hey, I can get you into this thing for $336 a month. What is there a problem with that for the consumer?
There can be.
Okay.
And I'll give you an instance. If you're trying to sell a payment and you're not disclosing term or what type of product it is, I mean, because of course, in 1997, they passed a law, Regulation M, in leasing, where they could no longer do these open-end leases. And, you pick a payment and you take the risk. So then in 3 years, the customer comes back and he owes the dealer $10,000 just to give the keys back. That's over with. However, there are instances where dealers will sell payment, which I think is an absolute disaster.
Payment.
Yeah, that's a fact. I mean, if you remember years ago, $199, $299 a month.
I get it.
And that takes the mind on payment. You mentioned 0%. You probably don't realize why dealers use 0%.
Why?
They use it because it brings a more well-qualified buyer to their dealership. Because the guy that understands what a percentage rate is and he sees 0%, he shows up, he's an 850 credit score.
And so the risk is lower to them.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
But the reality of it is what they're doing is they're buying that rate down with $10,000 worth of rebate. So, and in theory, he's still paying 5% interest.
I see.
It's not 0%.
Okay.
It's either he gets one or the other. So it's all a lot of hocus pocus, and there it goes back to the very beginning. I have a philosophy, and I call it slow and go. I never sell a car today. I typically do a pre-consult.
Yeah.
We cover the basis, because there's a trade involved. We're talking about it right now. There's a credit score involved. there are a lot of moving parts that are involved. There's insurance involved. Do you have a 15-year-old that's going to turn 16? It's going to need to go on your insurance policy in a year that could affect the cost of this Honda Accord with a turbo.
Okay.
So these are the things that you get a chance to air out and make an intelligent and informed decision, and that's typically what I do in my business.
Okay. Anything you want to say about that? So the overall price is probably what you want to go for. That's what you negotiate, not the $199, get it down to $170 or whatever.
I think it's the totality of the deal.
Right.
It's if what matters to you most is your monthly payment, there's no problem focusing on that, but you need to know what is the cost of that loan going to term. That's right. The dealer is required to put that on the contract.
Yeah.
Right. So they might not have it listed as $29,000 vehicle at $299 a month or $499 a month, whatever it might be. But their contract will absolutely have it on there. You need to make sure that you're reading the thing that you're signing.
Okay.
My wife and I made the mistake of buying a timeshare, and I'm a smart guy, and I can't believe how stupid I was.
That's a whole other episode. Man.
It's a whole nother episode, and there's a lot of hype associated with it. And you get this, and you get that, and the other thing, and like, oh my God, we got to do this.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, my wife and I are shaking our heads. How could we
maintenance fee a
be
year
scammed so bad?
Okay, all right. Let me get into a couple other things here, and then we'll get, because we're moving quickly here. One of the big. I'm looking at complaints. I'm not saying everybody who gets a car complains. Most do not. But of the complaints we see, many of them with the Better Business Bureau are problems that they have with the car later. The car was sold with significant damage. The undercarriage is full of rust. You wonder why they didn't see that. But we also pointed out to me that there was a zip holding one of the parts. I guess they brought it to somebody afterwards. There's a zip tie holding one of the parts together. Another one. Let's see. This one was bought with damage. Within 2 days of having the car locked itself into neutral while driving on the freeway and can't get the car fixed. They won't do anything about it in this case. Now, these haven't been vetted, but this is just the complaints, and I want to ask you about what we do in these situations. I bought my vehicle 2024, the vehicle had a pre-existing issue with the rear differential, I think, which they stated that nothing was wrong with the vehicle. Now my vehicle was in the shop for three weeks, longer than I anticipated. Another problem involving whatever. So they're having problems here. We could talk about what you need to do probably before you buy the car, but what happens if there's a problem after, and what kinds of problems are covered by the used car lemon law and what aren't? Some of these people are like, my brakes were bad. My tires weren't what they said they were. I don't know. Those things are covered. I don't think those things are covered by the lemon law. But if we can go into that, Dave, if you have anything you want to say about it?
First off, taking the vehicle to a mechanic after you buy it, and then the mechanic saying, here's all the things that need to be fixed.
Yeah.
That, number one, the mechanic, their job is to find things wrong and charge you to fix them. Okay, so let's make sure we understand who has the motivation to do what. I'm not saying that that doesn't mean that could be problems with the vehicle.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that taking it to the mechanic after is the wrong time.
Okay.
You could take it to a mechanic before you buy it.
Okay. Will dealers allow that?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
They will allow that.
Well, if
they go with you,
or their own mechanic, and just give me a list of everything that's wrong with it. The dealer can exclude components that they don't want to cover.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is, just because you took it to the mechanic after you bought it doesn't mean that the dealer you bought it from should have to fix those things. There are things that would be covered under implied warranty.
Right.
A lot of the things that a mechanic is going to be identifying aren't covered under implied warranty. The implied warranty covers a lot, all right? Like, it goes way further than a service contract or a dealer-provided warranty would provide. The state mandated implied warranty covers wearable parts as well.
Okay.
For 2 weeks, or 15 days or 500 miles, whatever comes first. So if your brakes fail within that time period, the dealer's going to have to fix them.
It has to be, though, I thought the lemon law, it has to be a, what's the word that they use? Something where you can't really drive the car. Something big. It has to be a big issue.
No, it goes further. It's safety and moving. Those are the
So brakes would be under that.
Because of safety.
Yeah.
Anything that would cause the vehicle to move or cause
An
it
oil
to
leak.
not move depends on the size of the oil leak.
That's right.
If it's a small oil leak, that's not going to be covered.
So
under
so there is a little gray area there, but
Yes.
but it does cover more than people may think.
It's pretty expansive for 2 weeks, or 15 days, or 500
And I've
miles.
also had, Tony, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I've also had concerns here where people think that they're being led to beyond the 15 days. But I think as long as you make a complaint within that 15 days, that's what counts. Even if they say we can't get to it for,
for that component,
3 weeks.
For that component.
Right.
So if you say this happened to my vehicle, and you notified them, the clock stops for that component.
Okay.
So the time and the mileage clock stops.
All right.
So even if you can't get it in for 3 weeks, it doesn't matter.
All right, Tony.
Yeah,
what do you say
I
about
think that the most important, it goes back to what I said before, slow and go. If you're buying an older car that could be compromised, it's like if you go to a yard sale, you buy something for, 70% less than its value. There is a certain expectation that it's not going to perform that it would if it was brand new.
Mm-hmm.
You should take the car to a well-qualified ASE technician and get the car inspected. Get a 40-point inspection.
Well,
now,
like the rust underneath. I mean, you think it was
yeah,
all
absolutely.
out of it, you would know that.
Yeah.
Or take a look at the car and go through it.
Yeah, that's something that would definitely show up. And, now, again, there's surface rust that doesn't necessarily mean that it's damaging to the frame. You have some typical frame stuff that the under of a carriage of a car doesn't look good.
Yeah.
And not even on a brand new one. However, there are things that are component management related that you definitely want to at least get an OBD scan. You want to be able to have a really good look at the brakes. You want to have, like you're talking about the oil leak. You want to have a look at your rear main, your front main, gaskets, exactly.
The transmission, I think
right.
Those are
and
the big
those
cost
are things
things.
that consumers, unfortunately, because they're, they get caught in a box.
Desperate sometimes.
Yes, they're desperate and they're anxious. Remember, I mentioned that.
Yeah.
They buy out of desperation, anxiety, and those steps get missed, and then their problems can occur. Now, there are also instances when the dealer does everything the right way. He gets that car checked, serviced, everything works, it's fine, and then for some bizarre reason, a computer component, because I tend to believe today's car is 80% computer and 20% engine, and it's just like your computer. You can get a bug, or an update missing, and you got a problem. So you got to get them inspected. If it's an older car, I'd say older than 5 years, you should get a pre-inspection before you buy it. Okay. If you don't feel comfortable with the dealer. Now, a lot of the dealers now will offer you, they'll go beyond that lemon law, and they'll say, listen, because you didn't buy an extended warranty, we're going to go ahead and put in place a 90-day guarantee, and they purchase it. It's a couple $100 for the dealer. That kind of gives mutual protection between the client and the business. Okay.
All right. Let's go to Dave. We're going to have to wrap up here, guys. It's been about half an hour. It's a really good conversation. I think we helped a lot of people, hopefully. Dave, as Executive Director of the Arizona Independent Automobile Dealer Association, they can get in touch with you at aiada.net. So aiada.net. And it makes sense with where you are. All right. And then what can you do for consumers if there are issues with that? I know you represent businesses, but also if a consumer has an issue with one of they should first of all look, I guess, to see if they are with your organization, correct, when they're shopping?
That'd be a good start. Go to our business directory, see if they're members of our association. They tend to be the better dealers in the state. It's not a guarantee that if they're a member that they're going to get treated well, but my members tend to be better members, and I hear that also from the regulatory agencies that are doing inspections of dealers, that they don't tend to have problems with the dealers that are members of our association. So that's a good start. Yeah. if a customer has got an issue, they can give us a call, and I'll let them know what their rights are and the rights of the dealer are. Okay. Frankly, a lot of the examples that you listed off, maybe all of them, were caused by consumers not doing their homework before they bought the vehicle, and then they want it to be somebody else's fault. Everybody has a role to play here. Yeah. Right. Most dealers are not planning to sell you a vehicle that won't last 2 weeks. Right. I, as a consumer, I wouldn't jump to the conclusion that the dealer was scamming you. Right. Used vehicles, even new vehicles, they break. Yeah. They're fallible. Right. And most vehicles that are sold are going to do just great for a couple of years or more.
So the key is really doing your homework beforehand, getting that financing in order. If you have any financing before you go into the place, do your research to find out prices and try to get exactly that price and question them if it isn't that price. Bring an inspection done, although I know you said that there were some concerns about that, but have an inspection done before you buy the car, so that you can know
inspection from the dealer.
Although I'd rather have a third party.
That's true, but if you got the inspection report, if it's a major franchise dealer, he's got to sign a report by his technician on what was inspected. All right. And you keep a copy of that.
And Tony Sibley, it's myautoman.com. Yeah. And what can you do for people when they come to you?
We work with all range of circumstances. Our primary bread and butter is assisting consumers purchasing new cars, or very gently used vehicles.
So you take some of the hassle away from.
Take it all. Okay. They never have to step foot in a dealership. In fact, we even allow them to cross compare. Say the guy is a little concerned that maybe the Toyota Camry versus the Honda Accord, there's some fit and finishes, or there's some issues with how the car feels to them. We bring them both there, no pressure. Okay. And we do it in a very, very modest, timely fashion. In fact, I discourage my consumers to want to come in there and buy a car that day. When I get that call, I generally try to slow them down, and if I can't, I won't even take them as a client because it's almost a disaster.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's great. Guys, I think we're going to wrap up here. So you can go to bbb.org and check reviews. Part of the homework you should do before hiring anyone. And those reviews are right there. And check for accredited businesses. Tony's is one of those. They agree to operate to a higher ethical standard. And you can see all the podcasts and the videos and things that I'm trying to do, bringing, talking with consumers and businesses and really trying to work on those situations that bring them together. So you can go to joeknowsbetter.bbbcommunity.org for that. So till next time, this is Joe Ducey and the Joe Knows Better podcast, and we'll see you in another time. Before hiring, go to bbb.org, check reviews, and for accredited businesses that agree to operate ethically, and see all my podcasted videos, joeknowsbetter.bbbcommunity.org.